Two friends start life almost the exact same way. They grow up in the same neighborhood, go to the same schools, and graduate within a year of each other. As adults, they even end up in similar careers. Their salaries stay within a few $1,000s of each other for decades. By 65, though, their lives look completely different. One retires with about $1.50 million invested, a paid-off home, and the freedom to spend his time however he wants. Winters in Florida, helping his grandkids with tuition, ordering whatever he wants at dinner without glancing at the price column. The other retires with about $200,000 saved, a mortgage still hanging over him, and constant money stress. He picks up shifts at a local home improvement store because Social Security alone isn't enough. Every month is a puzzle of bills, prescriptions, and property taxes. Same upbringing, same earning power, totally different endings. And here's the surprising part. The split between their lives didn't happen in their 20s. Back then, they were both too young and too broke to make much financial progress anyway. It didn't happen in their 30s either. Those years were full of the usual chaos, careers, kids, and figuring life out. And it didn't happen in their 50s. By then, the trajectory was already set. The real turning point was their 40s. One of them made a handful of choices during that decade that seemed minor at the time. The other made slightly different choices that also felt harmless. Neither realized those small decisions were quietly shaping the rest of their lives. Your 40s are the most powerful financial decade you'll ever experience, not because the choices are harder, but because the consequences multiply in ways most people don't notice until the window has already closed. Today, I want to show you why the 40s matter so much, the specific decisions that separate relaxed retirement from stressful retirement, and what you can start doing right now, no matter your age, to land on the right side of that divide. Let's start with the math that gives your 40s so much power. This decade sits right at the intersection of three forces that rarely line up anywhere else in your life. Understanding these forces explains why the 40th quietly determine so much of what comes later. The first force is peak earning power. For most professionals, income tops out somewhere between about age 42 and 55. The rapid raises from your early career slow down, but the total dollar amount you're earning is usually higher than it has ever been, and probably higher than it will ever be again. That means your 40s give you the most raw material you'll ever have for building wealth. Someone earning $125,000 at age 45 can potentially invest far more actual dollars than they could at any earlier stage of their career. The second force is remaining compounding time. At 40, you still have roughly 20 to 25 years until traditional retirement. Historically, that's enough time for money invested in the stock market to grow several times over. A dollar invested around age 40 can grow to roughly $4 by retirement. At 50, the timeline shrinks to about 15 years. That same dollar might become closer to 2.5. By 55, you've only got about a decade left. Now that dollar might double, but the explosive growth window is mostly gone. In other words, your 40s are the final decade where compounding still has real time to work. Money invested at 41 works dramatically harder than money invested at 51. The third force is expense stabilization. By your 40s, many big life expenses have stopped growing. Kids become more independent. The house payment that once felt huge starts feeling manageable. You're not constantly buying new furniture, building a wardrobe, or setting up an entire household from scratch. For the first time in adulthood, many people finally have financial breathing room. But here's the key question. Does that breathing room go toward building wealth? Or does it quietly get absorbed by a bigger lifestyle? Those three forces, peak income, meaningful compounding time, and stabilizing expenses, combine to create a decade with enormous financial leverage. You have more income than ever. You still have time for that money to multiply. And you may finally have margin in your budget. The people who capture that alignment build serious wealth. The people who miss it face math that becomes extremely hard to overcome later. Let's make this more concrete with numbers. Imagine someone turns 40 with $120,000 already saved for retirement. They earn $115,000 a year and could reasonably save about 15% of their income, around $17,000 annually. If they consistently invest that 15% from age 40 to 65 in low-cost index funds earning roughly 8%, they'll end up with around $1.40 million by retirement. Add Social Security to that, and they're looking at a pretty comfortable future. Now, let's change one detail. Instead of saving 15% during their 40s, they only save 5%. Maybe life feels expensive, maybe they're enjoying the income bump. Then at age 50, they get serious and increase their savings to 15%. That 10-year delay reduces their retirement balance to around $800,000. Roughly $600,000 disappears, just from easing up during one decade. That's the leverage of time. Now consider a third situation. Same person, same starting balance, but during their 40s, they let lifestyle upgrades take over. Bigger house, new cars, nicer vacations. Their savings rate drops to just 2%. At 50, the panic kicks in, and they try to compensate by saving aggressively, maybe 20% of their income. Even with that effort, they reach retirement with roughly $600,000. Their comfortable 40s quietly erased over $750,000 in potential retirement wealth. And the scary part? None of those choices felt reckless at the time. They felt normal. Now, let's talk about the specific decisions in your 40s that tend to have the biggest impact. The first one is housing. This decade often triggers the urge to upgrade. The kids are bigger. The house suddenly feels tight. Your career has progressed, and part of you wants a home that reflects that success. And because your income is higher, the mortgage payment feels manageable. But this decision can be one of the most expensive financial choices of your life. Let's say a family moves from a $380,000 home into a $650,000 one. Their monthly housing costs might jump by $1,700 or more. That's over $20,000 per year that can no longer be invested. Over 25 years, that difference can compound into roughly $1 million of retirement wealth. The house upgrade doesn't just cost extra monthly payments. It can literally cost $1 million in long-term financial freedom. I'm not saying nobody should ever buy a bigger house, but most people make this decision without understanding the true cost. They think they're adding $1,700 to their housing payment. In reality, they may be trading away an entire seven-figure investment portfolio. The second major decision involves cars. Your 40s are when many people start replacing practical vehicles with luxury ones. The reliable commuter gets swapped for something prestigious. The solid SUV becomes the fully loaded version. A household running two $50,000 vehicles instead of two $30,000 vehicles carries more debt, higher insurance, and bigger depreciation losses. Over decades, that vehicle premium can quietly cost hundreds of thousands in potential retirement savings. The third decision revolves around kids and education. Your 40s often include the most expensive parenting years. Teenagers bring activities, sports, insurance, and eventually college tuition. Some parents take on massive Parent Plus loans to send their kids to expensive private universities. Others pull money out of retirement accounts to cover tuition. Others simply stop saving for retirement during those years. Every one of those choices shifts financial security from the parents' future to the children's present. Meanwhile, the kids are about to enter their peak earning decades. The parents are heading toward the final stretch of their careers. Families who navigate this successfully usually make some uncomfortable choices. They encourage their kids to consider state universities, they prioritize scholarships, they expect some contribution through work or student loans. And they keep funding retirement even when tuition bills feel overwhelming. The fourth decision involves career risk. Your 40s often present opportunities that could significantly boost your income. Recruiters reach out about leadership roles. Growing companies offer equity. Industries pay premiums for experienced professionals. But many people become more risk-averse exactly at this point. They're comfortable where they are. They've built seniority. Starting somewhere new feels scary. Ironically, your 40s are often the last realistic window for major income acceleration. By your 50s, age bias can start creeping into hiring decisions. Someone who takes a calculated career risk at 44 has time to recover if things don't work out. Someone waiting until 54 often doesn't, and a $35,000 raise sustained over a decade can mean hundreds of thousands in additional wealth. The fifth decision is lifestyle inflation. Your 40s bring social pressure to show success. Friends start renovating kitchens. Co-workers take elaborate international vacations. Make neighbors buy boats or second homes. Some families resist that pressure. Others absorb every income increase into visible spending. The difference between those paths often exceeds $1 million by retirement. Let me give you two quick examples. Take Mark and Elena. At 40, they earned about $170,000 combined and had $190,000 saved. They upgraded their home, bought 2 brand new vehicles, and slowed their retirement contributions to handle the higher expenses. Their choices never felt irresponsible. Everything seemed reasonable. But 10 years later, their retirement balance had barely grown. By 65, they had around $700,000 saved. Not disastrous, but far less than they expected. Now compare that to Jason and Priya. Their starting point at 40 looked almost identical. Instead of upgrading homes, they stayed where they were and invested the difference. They bought lightly used cars instead of new ones. They had honest conversations with their kids about college costs. During their 40s, their lifestyle looked modest compared with their friends. But by 50, their investments had grown dramatically. By retirement, they had about $1.70 million and a paid-off house. The difference between those two families wasn't intelligence, luck, or income. It was decisions made during one decade. And here's something fascinating. Research shows lifestyle upgrades only boost happiness temporarily. Within about 2 years, most people adapt to the new normal, which means the people spending more during their 40s usually aren't actually happier than those who don't. They just spend more. Now let's talk about what this means for you. If you're in your 20s or 30s, you have the gift of foresight. You already know your 40s will bring pressure to expand your lifestyle. Start building habits now that will protect you later. Automate retirement contributions. Define what enough looks like before income makes excess easy. If you're entering your 40s right now, you're standing at the most important financial crossroads of your life. Audit your biggest expenses. Is your housing aligned with your long-term goals? Are your vehicles transportation or status symbols? Are you funding your future before funding lifestyle upgrades? Every yes to lifestyle inflation is a no to retirement security. If you're in your late 40s and realizing you drifted in the wrong direction, you still have time to adjust. Increase your savings rate. Consider options many people avoid: downsizing your home, selling expensive cars, or switching jobs for higher pay. And if you're already past your 40s with limited savings, focus on the levers still available. Delay Social Security to increase benefits. Work longer if possible. Release equity from housing if needed. Finally, there's a psychological trap behind all of this. By your 40s, it feels like you've earned the right to finally enjoy your success. You've worked for 20 years. Of course you want the nicer house, the better car, the upgraded lifestyle. But here's the catch. Those upgrades deliver excitement for a year or two. Then they become normal. Meanwhile, the financial consequences last decades. The upgraded house feels thrilling for 18 months, then it's just your house. The luxury car is exciting for a year, then it's just your car. Real gratification doesn't come from converting your peak earning years. It comes from converting those years into permanent freedom. Picture yourself at 70, in one version of that future. You're relaxed, planning trips, visiting family. Unexpected expenses don't scare you. In the other version, you're calculating whether this month's income will cover your bills. Both versions were created decades earlier, and the biggest difference happened during one decade, your 40s. The decade will pass whether you make intentional choices or default ones. The only real question is which version of your future self you're building. Your 40s decide everything. And that's not a burden, it's an opportunity.